Hi everyone and welcome back to Oceanicos. Today we're diving beneath the surface with someone who knows it better than most, Anna. She's a passionate dive master who has spent countless hours underwater exploring reefs, wrecks and marine lives. In this episode she shares her journey, what it's really like being underwater, diving with sharks and how the ocean continues to inspire her. Let's jump in. Hi Hannah.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure, it's been amazing.
So can you introduce you to our listeners?
Sure. So my name is Hannah. I'm a dive master. I grew up basically in the water. So for a bit of background, my parents met playing underwater hockey. If you don't know what that is, Google it, it's pretty cool. So I think I was kind of destined to love the water and the ocean even before I was born. We grew up swimming, diving, snorkeling, so I feel very fortunate. The ocean was a big part of my childhood. And then I went to uni, didn't have a lot of time for the ocean. When I graduated, I took some time and I spent 3 years doing seasonal work. So basically spent the last 3 years in and on the ocean, working in the marine tourism industry, which is definitely an interesting place to be, particularly from our conservation perspective. During that time, I completed my open water course, then my advanced, then my rescue, and then finally my dive master. I wanted to complete my dive master from a higher ability perspective, but also because of the skills that it gives you from a diving perspective. Such a great opportunity. And now in Coffs Harbour, I'm working as a clinical dietitian in the community. So diving in the ocean is my life and my hobby, but I do have another job now working in that clinical sphere. So it's a little bit about me and my background.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you remember your first dive? Your first ever dive?
First ever dive would have been my open water certification. So this was when I first went off to travel. And I wanted to dive in Cyprus with my friend. She already had her open water certification and there was this underwater museum. And we were like, oh, we have to dive there, but I needed to get my open water cert. So we dove in the Tweed River, which is just up north. It was freezing cold, no visibility, nothing to see, but I did it with my mum, who is also a dive master, but she just wanted to do it with me, so we'd do something together. And so we did that with terrible conditions, but made the most of it. And then I ended up, I guess my first real dive was then when I was in Cyprus at this underwater museum with like 30-meter visibility, 30-degree water. You can't have two more opposing dive experiences. So I guess first dive would have been my open water, but first real dive was in Cyprus.
Yeah. Oh, so that's a family thing, the ocean.
Absolutely.
So that with the mother and your parents every time in the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so great.
So my dad's also a spear fisherman, and so yeah, my mum's a dive master. My dad has some dive quals as well, but they don't scuba dive as much. We didn't really grow up scuba diving, more free diving and snorkeling.
Yeah.
So free diving will always have my heart, but I love scuba diving as well.
Yeah. So you said that you were doing other things next to diving and the ocean. How do you manage to have a balance between both?
It's a good question. I think we're very privileged in where we live in Coffs Harbour. We're so close to the sea, it's so accessible. I think the ocean is my passion. Diving is part of it, but the ocean itself is my real love. So for me, if I can be in the ocean once a day or every 2 days, then I feel content. So that is open water swimming. So I have an open water swimming group and we swim here at the jetty. And then the surf group, which you know as well, and those girls have been an amazing community as well.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, amazing. And then also scuba diving, so being involved in the dive centre. But like I said to you before, trying to balance, obviously the scuba diving is voluntary and it is like a whole day where I'm not really working, but it's still like a day of work. So that's more kind of interspersed between regularly going for ocean swims and surfing, which really fills my cup.
Yeah, it takes a long time. Swimming, scuba diving is
It's a whole day.
thing.
Yeah. It's a whole day.
It's a whole day, yeah.
Which I love, but if you're not being paid for it and you're doing all the pack down, you do have to balance that between like having time off on the weekends and maybe I'll go surf with the girls as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the ocean brings people together. That love of being in the water really does bring people together.
Yeah, really. I feel that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what do you feel when you are in the water? Do you have a particular feeling?
I was thinking about this question and I feel at peace, but I also feel invigorated. And I know it sounds like two opposing feelings, but I think you can probably relate to this feeling. There's something about being underwater that is like, has this calming effect, but I feel alive. Like it gives me energy, but makes me feel at peace. And it's hard to explain, and I know they sound opposing, but it's just that amazing feeling.
Yeah, it's a mix of both, and it's just a unique feeling.
It is a unique feeling.
If you haven't dived before, you cannot understand what it is.
Yeah. I see a lot of those memes on Instagram where it's like their head's above the water and it's all the voices and their head goes under and the voices go away.
Yeah.
And like it is so that feeling of, oh, okay, like let me just like breathe,
like a big
be
breathe.
present. Like it's just being present, and it makes you feel so alive but present and calm, and it's a lot of feelings, but I would say energized and at peace would be my core feelings.
And I think it's a bit the same with the sound of the ocean, because when I'm underwater it feels so calm and no sound, but at the same time there are all the sounds of the ocean. So it's a bit of a mix.
Absolutely. And I think to your point there, the sound of the ocean, it's something I would point out when I was guiding, is you put your head underwater and people think, oh, you can't hear anything. You need to listen, because you can hear the fish eating and you can hear the fish jumping and the parrotfish eating their coral and things like that. There's actually so many sounds when you're underwater. You just need to hear them.
Yeah. When I dived in the Reunion Island, I had the opportunity to hear the whales and the water.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's
special.
Incredible. Yeah. And we were feeling their
in your chest you can like hear their call. Absolutely.
That was just incredible.
And it's the same with the dolphins as well. They clicks when they're underwater. The ocean is not a silent place. It is not a silent place.
It's not silent, but it feels like it's silent when you're underwater.
When you don't know what you're listening for, once you know what you're listening for, you can hear the life all around you. Yeah.
That's the magic of the ocean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a place or a moment underwater that left a lasting impression on you, like something that you would never forget?
I was thinking about this question as well, because I feel like I have so many moments that it's difficult to pick one. I think I would just pick one more recently, when I was diving out at Solitary Islands with Jetty Dive, and there was this leopard shark. And I feel like, I know this sounds really egotistical, but I feel like it chose me. Honestly, it like swam past, and you know how they are, they're graceful and they're just so leisurely and just calm and peaceful. Swam, and it turned and it just swam straight towards me, and we just had this eye contact. It swam straight towards me, and it was 30 centimeters away from me as it swam past. And it's just that like feeling of awe that it chose me. You know, I mean, those wildlife interactions where they choose to be near you will always be so incredibly special. And for such an incredible creature like a leopard shark, they're just so beautiful. For them to come so close while I'm just sitting there, you know, diving is amazing.
Oh wow, yeah. The wildlife is so incredible.
Amazing.
And when they allow you to be close to them, it's just incredible.
It'll probably link into one of your other questions, but this is something that I feel is very key, and it's something I would bring a lot to my tours as well when I was guiding. You always need to let them choose the interaction. It's so important, because we don't want to stress them out. We don't want to force them into these interactions. But when they choose it, it's so special. You can't have it any other way. And we don't want to go there and make an impact. So let them choose that interaction, because when you have that moment, there's nothing like it.
And since they have chose to come close to you, they have a different behavior, and it's so special.
Oh, it's so different. Absolutely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
How has your view of the ocean changed over the years and over countless hours you've spent underwater?
It's a good question because I look at it from a pretty broad perspective because I've spent so many years in the water. So if I look at it from when I was a child to maybe now with, you know, qualifications as opposed to something to play in, I think I used to take it for granted. I mean, as a kid, you don't really know any better.
Yeah.
You take it for granted that it will always be there, the wildlife will always be there. It'll be this healthy existence on this planet and this cohabitation with this entire ecosystem that will always be there. And you take that for granted as a kid and you have these special moments. I think over my time diving, I've stopped taking it for granted.
Yeah.
I see the impact that we have on the ocean and it's not always going to be there. Yes, the water might be there, but the life won't be, and I just can't take that for granted anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's my biggest perspective on what's changed for me.
And have you seen some changes in the water?
Like climate change?
Like climate change or pollution and everything?
So I got a good example of that. So when I was quite a lot younger, I think I was maybe, 13 or something like young, where I went to the Whitsundays with my family and we had the most amazing time snorkeling, spending time on the reef and free diving and just appreciating being in the water. We then went back 5 years later, again with my family. I don't remember much of a difference at the time. Again, as a kid, you're taking that for granted. You're just enjoying being in the water.
Yeah.
But I still remember that lots of life and coral and things like that. I then went back to work in the Whitsundays about 2 years ago. And I can't even explain to you how devastating it is to see that impact. And you don't really notice it when you're 15 years old, but I could see that difference. It was obvious. We had that massive cyclone come through the Whitsundays, and more of these extreme weather events will happen, so there will be more impact. But entire coral bommies had been lifted up and turned upside down. You could see it.
Wow.
You could see the bleaching that had happened, the impact of tourism, the impact of the bareboats. So the bareboats are yachts and things that people can take out and sail around the Whitsundays, which sounds so idyllic. But they don't have much regulation on who can take these boats out. I've seen people drive these boats full throttle onto the reef when I was guiding. Like there really is very little regulation around who can take these out and what knowledge they need to have around reef and reef conservation. I mean, I know a lot of people would probably fish as well in the green zones where you're not supposed to. There is massive impact there, and just in those less than 10 years, I could see that. And the bleaching as well is just devastating.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it's devastating.
Yeah, and understanding those changes, like for you, you were just 15, so you were young, but you remembered how it was, and maybe you were expecting to see the same thing, but seeing the difference. Wow, that's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. It is. And I did some time working on the Crown-a-thorn starfish boats up north, and there was a recent bleaching event that has still not recovered from, and then the water's warming again, and I just could not believe the reef impact. There was, in a 15-day swing, so we're at sea for about 15 days, there was probably one reef that I thought, oh, this is really nice, this is really healthy.
Yeah.
There was just so much dead coral and impact from the environment. I just felt so sad every time I got out the water.
Yeah, on social media we saw so many videos of bleaching corals, and that's so sad.
But what does that mean if you're not in the water? I mean, we look at it, we scroll past it, and it's onto the next consumerism thing on our social media. We don't truly understand the impact that this environmental disaster is going to have on us as well. And it's so, when you're in the water and you're looking down and you see these organisms dying, it is devastating. Yeah,
and for people that are not close to the ocean, when they saw a video like that, they're like, oh, that's sad, and they scroll, and they don't understand the point. They don't understand that it can have an impact on them.
Absolutely. So. And I think a lot of people are overwhelmed because they think, okay, well, how does that impact me and what can I do? Like, it is overwhelming. Like, I totally relate to that.
Is there a marine species that you'd love to see, or that you have already seen but that you love?
Okay, I can't narrow it down to one. It's physically impossible.
Yeah.
So I have 2 seahorses that I want to see. Which one is pygmy seahorse, like really tiny. No, I'd love to see that. Or a weedy sea dragon, because I think they're beautiful. Those would be kind of more of my like small fauna, but mega fauna wise, it would have to be mola mola, which is sunfish for those that don't know, or orcas. To swim with orcas would just be amazing.
Yeah, I would love to.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And a really interesting thing about orcas as well, I think people are quite nervous. Obviously, they are an apex predator. They're incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
There have been no deaths of humans by orcas in the wild, only in captivity.
Yeah.
Which I think is incredibly interesting. And can't say I blame them.
That says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to dive with orcas. To swim with them.
Magical.
They're incredible. People are so scared about them, but I think it's the same with shark. You just have to know them, and
it's fear of the unknown, isn't it? Like when you don't know the sea and you don't know these animals. I mean, they are wild animals at the end of the day. Like we do also need to go into it with responsibility in the way we interact with these animals. But the more you know, the more you can understand, the more you can appreciate all of this. Yeah.
There are so many people that still doesn't know anything about the ocean or the species, and
and how incredibly important it is. Yeah, absolutely.
We have to communicate about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have a funny or emotional dive that you remember?
Was when I did a dive when I was in Thailand, and I was almost finished my dive master certification at the time, and it was just a really bad dive for me. So we descended and I was just tagging along for a fun dive. It was being led by an instructor and a few of his, I think we had 2 other girls with us, and the current was just pumping, and it was about a 40-meter drop, but the visibility was really poor. So we dropped to about 18 meters, I don't know, within a few seconds, because we just had nothing to kind of orient ourselves. I looked at my dive watch and I was like, oh my god, we're at 18 meters, we're kicking into this current. I just felt like I couldn't catch my breath. Because descending into depth, and really quickly when you're quite tired, you feel like you're pulling quite a lot of air, and I just had this feeling that something was wrong, and I had to abort the dive. And I mean, you can have all the dive experience in the world and still have bad dives. This is what I was saying to you before as well. A good diver knows when it's a bad dive. And I really had to tell myself that afterwards, because it's hard to abort a dive and feeling like you're not comfortable. But setting that boundary with yourself where, okay, this does not feel right, I know I'm not going to enjoy this dive, and just making the call to get out. And it was actually quite hard afterwards. I felt like I was like, okay, get back on the horse really quickly, like get back in, dive, just so I don't get in my head about it. And the first few dives afterwards I did feel quite stressed, because that feeling was awful and you really want to avoid that feeling again. But I think it taught me a lot. And since then I haven't had a dive like it, but it did teach me a lot at the time about what my boundaries are with diving.
And it is really important to know your boundaries while diving, because you're still underwater. And at maybe for 20 meters or even more meters down, so it can be dangerous. And
absolutely,
it is important to know your boundaries, to know the risks, and to learn from them.
And I mean, we can love the ocean as much as we do, but we still need to respect it. I mean, the ocean isn't malicious or discerning with how it impacts people. Like, it's just there and it exists, so we need to go into it with respect. And at the end of the day, we're responsible for our own safety. You might have a guide, but it's your safety that you have to look after when you're diving. So even, like I said in our free dive chat, like make sure you go with a buddy, like always just dive with a buddy. Your safety is important, so we can enjoy the ocean.
And the ocean is just there living, and we are in the ocean, so he's never going to be responsible for anything.
No, exactly. The ocean doesn't pick and choose who or how it affects things. It just exists.
That's the nature.
Exactly.
Have you dived in different places, and if so, which one is your favorite?
I've dived in a few different places. I'm sure there's lots of people with, a lot more dive experience than I have, and maybe more diversity as well. Few of my places, Australia, Indonesia, Thailand and Cyprus I think are the only places that I've dived. Have a lot of other places that I would love to dive as well. It's difficult to say. I love the marine life in Australia, and it's also why I love living in Australia so much, because we have such incredible marine life. I found diving in somewhere like the Mediterranean just felt like there was no real life there. Thailand felt very impacted by pollution. So I'd say Indonesia has to be my favorite in that sense. The visibility is incredible. The water temperature is incredible. Again, their marine life is amazing. They also are impacted quite a bit by pollution as well. You see it everywhere. It's difficult to pick one spot. I'd say probably Indonesia. I think the dive conditions when I was diving was just so amazing that it did leave that really wonderful impression on me.
When the ocean is crystal clear.
Oh, there's nothing like it.
Change everything.
It's nothing like it, honestly. It's amazing.
But I think every place in the world is incredible for diving.
It has something, everywhere has something different to offer.
So it's difficult to choose just one.
It's very hard. And I haven't dived in that many places. I don't know how people who have dived in all over the world, how would you choose one? I don't know.
They just can't. So now we're going to talk about the environmental.
Cool, exciting. Let's get into it.
How you're mindful of your environmental impact as a diver, and how do you manage that?
Very basic principles. I say it's basic. Maybe people don't think about it, but it's something that I bring to my diving. And as a guide, I think it's our responsibility, myself and other guides, to bring these concepts into it as well. You know the saying of when you're out in the bush, leave only footprints. It's the same in the water. Leave only bubbles, take only trash. And I think it's pretty simple. Just look and don't touch. And I know I say that with some passion in my voice because I do get frustrated because people don't abide by this concept. I don't know if it's something about humans and needing to touch things, but just don't touch. We just need to look. If we want to preserve this for as long as we can, just look and appreciate and don't touch. We're not there to have an impact on the environment. We're just there to look and appreciate and be part of it. This goes for coral, marine life, and it comes into that principle of what I was saying to you before of let them interact with you. You don't interact with them. Or even if they are interacting with you, make sure you're not trying to touch them or reach out, those sorts of things. You're just there sitting and enjoying. If they choose to come towards you and have that interaction, let it happen and appreciate. And I think just to kind of highlight that, leave only bubbles, take only trash. A really important thing with the trash and taking that away, or pollution, and something I did for myself was I did my dive against debris. You can do those extra little certifications when you scuba dive through PADI. I did my dive against debris certification. It's so incredibly useful because it tells you what trash you should or should not take. And it was something I always struggled with because I don't want to leave plastic or anything behind. But a really important thing to remember is if there's a living organism on that piece of plastic, you need to leave it behind because they've now made it its home. If there isn't, take it away. But it was a really important distinction for me, and it was really helpful when I do go into the marine environment, knowing what I should and shouldn't take. Got a really good example of this. I did a snorkel tour in Indonesia, and I pretty much spent most of the tour picking up plastic. I could not believe how much was there. There was like pieces of like cloth and massive plastic bags, but there was quite a few bits of plastic that had kind of been enveloped by coral. Cut away what you can, but anything that is attached to a living organism, or if you have to break that organism to take it, you need to leave it behind. I remember there was this little piece of soft plastic and it had like this soft coral mollusk thing growing on it. You need to leave that behind as well. It's now a living organism's home. But it was just such a helpful distinction. And I know it seems like common sense when you say it, but it's not something you generally know. Another really good point was with glass. So glass isn't harmful for the marine environment. It ends up getting tumbled, turns into sea glass, things like that. If the glass is brand new and it looks like it's just entered the water, take it, because then it's kind of pollution. If it's been there a long time, just leave it behind. So these are really important distinctions for me and my diving practice that I bring with me as well, because you can actually educate other people.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I didn't know that, and I think every diver should learn this.
I think it should be an essential part of the dive course. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think like with how the earth evolves and how the ocean evolves, we have to now, when we dive, we have to take trash, and
absolutely,
we need to take them out of the water. And
it's an all part of diving now to take things away that we find.
And now it should be like normal. You know that you dive, you see something. If you can, you take it. And trash. I'm speaking about trash.
Yeah, absolutely. Leave everything else behind. Yeah.
But it's still so. A lot of divers still don't know that, and it's still hard to put it in minds.
It is, and I think it's really helpful to know these kind of principles as well, because if you don't know, I mean, generally people want to do good, and if you don't know what to take, you think it's overwhelming. Knowing these things is important. It should be part of really our open water certification to do your dive against degree. It's such a big part of diving now. Most times when I go, I see some form of like pollution or trash, plastic, that sort of thing. It's pretty much in essence part of diving practice now. There's too much trash on the ocean for it to not be.
Yeah, really. And you were also speaking about just looking at species, and we still saw so many videos on internet of people touching animals, touching corals, touching everything.
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, to bring a little bit of a highlight into this as well, with fishing, catch and release. If you're not wearing gloves and you touch a fish, the oil in our skin breaks their mucus barrier, which impacts their scales and makes them sick. So it's something to keep in mind if there's any fishermen out there listening. If you're going to be doing these fishing practices, how can you reduce your impact? There's very simple things you can do. One of them is to not touch marine life. They have very delicate like mucus and things like that on their skin, to try to not break that, because if you release them back, they're probably going to get sick anyway.
And there are also some boats when they fish something they were not meant to fish, they put it back to the ocean, but like it's especially with sharks, but they are hurt and they probably not gonna survive. But they're like, oh, we put it back in the ocean. So, but but
it's frustrating. It is.
So, in your opinion, what's the most urgent thing we should do to protect the ocean?
Okay, I'm going to highlight in my opinion. So everyone's got probably their own opinions, or maybe more evidence-based opinions on this as well. So it's really hard to pick one thing. There's
so many things.
I will pick my three top things. Firstly, and I know this sounds, again, maybe really obvious, but let's just bring a little bit of attention to it. Let's reduce our consumption. Sustainable fishing doesn't really exist. Sustainable means something that can occur over and over and over, and it will exist in the same way. We look at the fishing practices, we look at David Attenborough's new film Ocean, and we're all like, oh, it's revolutionary, it's the bottom trawling. I'm like, this is not revolutionary. This has been in existence for a really long time. And let's think about how can we reduce our consumption. We already have overconsumption of so much. It's very, I mean, you can support sustainable fishing practices, pole and line versus, trawling, that sort of thing. Not having yellowfin tuna because they're endangered. So picking what sort of fish you're having and how they're being fished. So you can choose very responsibly what you're actually consuming, but what you can also do is try and reduce your consumption as well. So those are two things that you can kind of take away: responsible consumption and reducing your consumption. We can get a lot of these same vitamins and minerals, like our omega-3s, our essential fatty acids, from plants and seeds. So our chia seeds and our flax seeds have a lot of these same really essential fatty acids that our fish do. So maybe reducing our consumption and finding alternatives, which are there, they're definitely there. But also looking at, you know, what are you choosing? Where does it come from? Who is funding it? You know, making those kind of more responsible decisions with what you're having. My second thing would be cruise ships. Let's bring a little bit of attention to cruise ships. They become incredibly popular recently.
Yeah, really.
So for a bit of background, I was working on Moreton Island, and they pretty much have a cruise ship stopping at the island once a week now. It's mind-blowingly often. Like, it is so often. And you think about the massive environmental impact of these things. So the dumping of waste, how much fuel it uses. I mean, in whale season, I don't know how many marine animals they're hitting, that sort of thing. They have a massive impact, and it really is just overconsumption. So I think, I don't know what the answer is, and it's a little bit of an opinion on cruise ships and their impact. I mean, look at, I think it's Antarctica, that there's lots of cruise ships going there. That's having a massive impact on the marine life there and the ice and everything. So look, let's just bring a little bit of attention to cruise ships. Again, how can we reduce our consumption? Do we really need this way of travel? I just want to bring a little bit of attention there. I don't have the solution. So I just wanted to put that in there. My third, you go.
Cruise ships are getting so much bigger and bigger.
And so popular. So popular. It's a very digestible way to consume travel. So it's easy. You're staying on the ship and everything's there for you. It's really easy. But I even think about when I was on the island, you have about 3,000 people going onto like about a kilometre strip of land. The trash that is left behind is mind-blowing. Like, I remember the cruise ship would come and leave, and I'd spend time picking up plastic from the beach that was left behind. It's devastating. I'd love to see like a survey done even on the Moreton Bay area specifically on the impact that these cruise ships have had just in the last year. I guarantee you it'd be enormous. Even just like what's been left behind trash wise, the impact of like the fuel, all of these sorts of things, and the marine life. But like I said, I don't have the solution. I just wanted to highlight the point there.
It's the point of this episode, just highlighting things, because we're not scientists, so we don't have the answer, but just putting that into mind that, you know, maybe cruise ships are not really good, maybe there are better options to travel, and just starting like that, it's still something. And it's coming up with ways to responsibly travel. Like you say, it's just highlighting what can we do differently. Are we going to sit here and keep doing the same thing that has impact? Am I going to sit here and keep having the yellowfin tuna every single day for lunch? That sort of thing. It's like, what can we do a little bit differently? How can we think about it? How can we educate ourselves? The information is there. We just need to spend a little bit of time caring. My last and final point that I think, so immediate action, I suppose would be, let's reduce our consumption, think about like responsibly sourced fish, thinking about our consumption of travel in terms of cruise ships. Most immediately, and I think so important, I pause because I need to gather my words, is the new implementation of the drumlines in Queensland just recently, and shark nets. I've already seen on social media someone put up a video of, so the whale season started, a whale has already been entangled in a shark net. And I'm like, how many times does this need to happen for the government to actually care about our marine life? If you don't care about the sharks, at least care about the whales. Definitely.
So most immediately, shark nets need to come down, drumlines need to go. Most immediately. So the best way that we can support this is looking at policy that supports reducing the shark nets and the shark programs and things like that. What's the policy and the policy makers that are supporting this and making this happen? But also questioning, where does this money come from? Where does $90 million come from in Queensland to put these drum lines up? It just blows my mind. I'm like, there is so much more we can be doing with that money to help our environment rather than hindering it. Right at the beginning of whale season, I really can't comprehend that they've commenced it right at the beginning of whale season. We know it has an impact. That whale that's been entangled, probably still has rope attached to it and probably still has injuries as well.
Yeah.
You're on the move all the time as a whale. If you can't recover from those injuries, that's it.
Yeah, and especially because the Queensland government definitely knows that whales are coming here.
It happens every year.
Every year.
It happens every year.
They know it.
Yeah.
It has just begun and already one whale is in. Yeah.
I mean, even this as well, like, I don't have the answers, and sometimes I feel like, what can I do here? Like, I feel strongly like, what can I do? And I think writing to local, council members, expressing your concerns, looking at the policymakers who would take this away and do support the environment, think about like where you're putting that sort of effort as well, and raising awareness, talking about it with people in your community. I know even in our surf group that we're both in, a few people didn't know even that what the drum lines were, and they're off our coast here. People don't even know what they are or what they do. So raising awareness on their impact is important. Just having general discussion, like, we're just your average Joes. We're not policy makers, we're not scientists yet for yourself. So having these discussions and raising awareness is really important, and being brave enough to have this discussion.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking again.
It is, yeah.
It has
it's overwhelming.
Started, so many whales are coming.
Still yet to come.
And still yet to come to Queensland, and how many of them will get caught in those?
And I mean, like winter here in Coffs, you can see the whales come through. I mean, the drum lines are still out.
Yeah.
Nothing to be done. Yeah.
And if they had spent those $90 million into conservation, maybe they could have been better.
What difference can be made? Like, so much.
So much. Yeah. We've a bit talked about it before, but what's one thing you wish people more understand about the ocean? So many things again.
It's so hard. So many things. How important it is for our survival. I mean, the ocean produces half of the world's oxygen, and it stores so much carbon. It's essential for our climate regulation, and only 3% of the ocean is protected.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's like, what I want people to know is how incredible it is, how important it is, and how close we are to losing it.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what I would want people to know.
Because people don't understand that if we lose the ocean, we lose everything.
We lose everything. Everything.
They're gonna understand it, but too late.
Too late. Yeah. Like 3 billion people rely on the ocean for their livelihood, for food, for their economy. Like, the ocean is integral to humanity and the survival of our planet.
And we saw it clearly in Australia. Almost everyone here in Australia lives near to the coast. So
we're so drawn to the ocean. A lot of our main cities are, close to the ocean. I like to think about our mammalian reflex. So how our heart rate slows when we hold our breath, and we get like the wrinkly fingers. So that's our mammalian reflex. I like to think of that as a strong indicator of how humans have been made to interact so closely with the ocean. We are stakeholders in the ocean's health, and we still have the genetics to support that.
Yeah, and that's even more heartbreaking, knowing that the ocean gives us everything. And I was speaking with the Dr. Kirsten Benkendorf on another episode, and she has found that in some mollusks, that some mollusk could help fight cancer. And the ocean has so many answers for us for how disease and everything, but we are destroying it.
So much to offer.
That's.
This is getting sadder and sadder.
So much to say. Is there a cause or initiative that you support or would like to get involved in?
Yeah, this is a good question. for those that are interested for like very consumable like content, educate yourself, Earthrise Studio on Instagram is excellent. They produce information in a very easy way to digest and understand, and they have really good awareness on different kind of social, political issues that are impacting our climate crisis. So if I can just put a little bit of a shout out to that, for those that are really interested in maybe educating themselves a little bit more, that's a really easy kind of Instagram way that you can do that. Sea Shepherd does some really great work as well. It's something that I'd probably be interested in getting involved in a little bit more. But if I'm honest, on a very basic local level, I would love to see more initiatives where I am. Just things like beach cleanups or like environmental discussions, things like that. Like, and if we can get more of that kind of like local scale initiatives everywhere, imagine the change that we could have. So I mean, organizations like Sea Shepherd do such great work, but what's our accessibility to that? What can we do on a personal level? I mean, I'd think about like COFs just specifically, like what sort of initiatives can we get going here? It's something that, you know, I'd love to think about. I even think about like the Dive Against Debris certification, like, you know, having that come through with Jetty Dive or something like that. You know, what I'd like to have more involvement, even just on a local personal level. Something that I did try to implement when I was living on Moreton Island, I did suggest that we start introducing the Dive Against Debris certification. So a little bit of background, I'm going to expose the resort for this, which I'm really excited. So Tangalooma Resort likes to, well, they claim that they're an eco resort, but we weren't able to get the Dive Against Debris certification going because basically the discussion was the resort wouldn't want kind of a highlight on how much there was to actually clean up, if that kind of makes sense. They wouldn't want it to happen so frequently because it means there's a problem. So I organised a Dive Against Debris dive, I think it was beginning of last year. I think we picked up like, I don't know, 5 kilos of fishing line just underneath the jetty. Like I'll send you some photos of like and videos of what we had. But if you can just sit for a moment and imagine how much line goes into 5 kilos of fishing line.
That's huge.
And we go and we dive there, and there's wobbegongs, which is a type of carpet shark for those that don't know a wobbegong. They're sitting there in amongst the line. Like, it's heartbreaking. It's actually heartbreaking to see all of this trash sitting there at the supposed eco resort that allow people to fish wherever they want, catch and release, cut their lines. And I mean, nothing's done. They're not picking it up because they don't want to admit that they're not actually eco-friendly. It's greenwashing. It's like so greenwashing. So much of tourism and like working in the marine tourism industry, it's so obvious to me. We have, and I have such a unique perspective being part of it as well, and seeing what do these people do, what do these companies do to make it look like they're trying, or make it look like people are able to make that responsible choice. It's really hard because then it's like, okay, well, as a consumer and as a person, all the onus is on us, like, make the responsible choice, this and that. I'm like, okay, but like a lot of the time maybe we don't have time to do the research into whether or not it's environmentally friendly, and it says it is. Where's the legislation and the regulation around this? Why is there not more push from people in power that can make the difference? The government putting this legislation in place so that it is easier for the consumer and the individual to make responsible choices. It always feels like it's being put on us. But at the end of the day, it needs to come from higher. Definitely. I actually forgot what your question was. I went off on a bit of a tangent.
But yeah, and speaking about that, we're putting so much pressure on people to be eco-friendly, to do this, to not to do this. But sometimes when you saw something and it said, oh, we are eco-friendly, you're like, oh great, I'm doing something great for the ocean, for the earth. But it was a lie, and we can't every time see if it's really eco-friendly or if it's just greenwashing. And I think there are a lot of people that just gave up on this.
Yeah,
because
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It is overwhelming, like trying to figure out. I mean, there's very like simple things that are obvious. Like, for example, like the whale sharks in Indonesia. I mean, I would never go on one of those tours because they bait them, and
Yeah.
there's, you know, obviously so many environmental and animal rights issues and that sort of thing with that. A lot of people still don't know that.
Yeah.
A lot of people still don't know how to be part of tourism and make responsible choice. Make it easier for the individual.
Yeah,
Just make it
yeah.
easier. It needs to come from higher. But I guess circling back to your question about like what would I like to get involved in, I'd love to see more local initiatives in
Yeah.
terms of like climate and that sort of thing.
But speaking about that, I was really not shocked, but I was like, oh, that's weird, because when we arrived in Coves, there are not a lot of bins around here, and so I'm like, so where the trash goes? Directly in the ocean, or and it's just simple things like that, like just putting bins, so people just don't put it in the sand or in the ocean.
Yeah, definitely.
And just little things like that can change a lot.
Yeah,
So,
or something that I like to think is a really easy thing to implement for everyone. And if you take anything away from this episode, let it be this: use a keep cup. It's so, if you're gonna get a coffee, just use a keep cup. It is
Yeah.
so easy to directly reduce your waste by using a keep cup
Yeah.
for your coffee.
yeah.
So easy. And I mean, there's coffee shops sitting here right along, all the way along this waterline, producing waste.
Yeah.
If every single person came and brought their keep cup, imagine how much waste that would reduce. I think often we get overwhelmed. We think, oh, like, I'm just one person, like no one else cares. Like, why would I do anything? But if everyone thinks they're one person that no one else cares, how do we create change?
Yeah.
If you start to care and the next person sees that and they think, oh, but like they're caring, maybe I should too.
Yeah.
It then starts that ripple effect. And if everyone does one tiny thing, imagine the
change.
impact
Yeah.
you can actually have. It gets overwhelming because we think we need to make all of these changes and do all of these things. Just pick one thing
Yeah.
and try that, and then pick one other thing and try that. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing. It's too
Yeah.
hard. It's been made too hard for the individual, for the consumer. Just pick simple things that can reduce your impact and start there.
Yeah. There's not, like, we're not saying to do so many things
No.
to be zero waste and everything. Just one thing can change everything. So, yeah. If everyone does a little thing, it can be great.
I mean, there's what, 8 billion people on this planet. Imagine
Yeah.
if, okay, this is a random example. Imagine if everyone used a keep cup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing the scale you can create if everyone does the tiniest little thing. Because it is overwhelming. Like, the climate crisis is overwhelming and it's scary. Try and make it a little bit easier and choose things that you can do.
And I think, like, for the example of the keep cup, it's also helpful for the cafe, for example, because they don't have to buy the cup
So true. Yeah.
So
Benefits everyone.
yeah. But I think this question is really interesting since we've talked about all those sad things.
Yes, okay.
How do you say hopeful when faced with all those things, with all those trash in the ocean and those coal bleaching and everything?
It's a hard question because I think I go through like kind of phases with it. It's easier not to care because it's not as scary when you don't care.
Yeah.
But I just can't be that way. Like, I have to care. I see it all the time and it is devastating. I think I stay hopeful knowing that I think on my own individual level, I'm trying to do as much as I can, and I can only really focus on myself. We get really caught up in what other people are doing, but I think if I can just focus on myself and feel like I'm doing as much as I can feel content with myself. And then also know that there are really great organizations out there that are fighting. Like, I don't know enough about it, but that boat that just sailed over to like Israel and Palestine with like Greta on it, and like, I mean, she's doing amazing things and bringing awareness, and like there's some pretty incredible people out there trying to make change. Or even, for example, that Earthrise studio that I told you about on Instagram. That gives me hope, because there are people in maybe a bit more of a position of power than myself that are advocating for these things to change and trying to bring awareness for people. So I think that helps keep me hopeful. But I think trying to feel content with just being able to do as much as I can as myself helps me as well, because it's hard. Like, I mean, repeating myself, but when you get caught up in what everyone else is doing and maybe feeling like, oh, but other people don't care, then it starts to get really hard. You have to look insider and just be content with what you're doing, because otherwise it's pretty overwhelming.
And also I think there are more and more people caring for the ocean, especially young people. They are
definitely
getting more and more into conservation and into the environment, so that's still hopeful.
And I think like what I said before, like, be brave enough to have these conversations even when you don't know everything. Like, I mean, I said to you before, I'm not an expert. This is just my personal experience and the things that I know. Be brave enough to have these conversations. Be open-minded to people's perspectives and the things that they might be doing or the things they might not be doing. Come at it from a non-judgmental perspective as well, because as soon as people feel judged, they don't want to. They don't want to engage with it. We'd take away the judgment and come in with an open mind, and you just create so much more change.
And I think that's really something I want to highlight in this episode, is that you don't have to be an expert to do some things or to think. Like, if there's just something that you are interested in, just read a book or something, and you can, like, it's not because you're not an expert that you can say things about these topics. For example, the ocean, or there's so many things you can still say and do. And,
and I think kind of what you're saying is take control and educate yourself. Like, we have so much consumable media. It's actually insane. So much. I mean, you can Google things, you can look at Instagram, TikTok, or whatever it is. There is so much consumable media even on these topics. So just take a moment, or just look up one thing that you can do. I think that's kind of the point you're saying. And also, like, you're not a scientist, you're a diver, and you saw all the things, you know all those things thanks to the diving also. And like, you just have to put a feet in the ocean and you don't have to know everything. So no, absolutely. I mean, the ocean's for everyone. It's an accessible place, and it's hopefully something that we can keep around for as long as possible. I'd love for everyone to have the opportunity to see the reefs and the marine life that are out there.
So I received a lot of questions about sharks. So
Cool. Let's get into it.
We will dedicate a part of this episode
to
just for sharks.
Cool.
So I got a question from Michael, who said, have you ever dived with sharks? Did it feel dangerous or scary at first? And has your perception of them changed through those experiences?
It's a really good question. There's nothing quite as magical as diving with sharks. And you feel very in control when you're diving, because you're very aware, calm, and if you're coming from an approach, like I said to you before, about allowing them to interact, it really should be quite stress-free, because you're not forcing an interaction with them. They're not stressed, they're not being harmed, they're not defensive. You're just observing. And there's something so incredible about having that experience with sharks. I mean, I feel very passionately about sharks. There's so much fear-mongering in the news and the media, and a lot of people do fear them. They are a wild animal, and so let's preface that. I totally get they're a wild animal, and it's the same as the ocean. Like, sharks are not malicious. They're not going out to kill people. I think they're often portrayed as these horrible, evil things. I'm like, it's not a moral value. These are wild animals. They're just existing, and we're existing with them. For me, choosing to be in the ocean is choosing to be a visitor and be part of their environment.
Yeah.
So that's the risk that I take. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because they're incredible and the ocean gives me so much. I wouldn't want that to be taken away. And I mean, like I said before, you can really approach it in a respectful way. I haven't dived with like bull sharks or tiger sharks. I have friends that have, and again, say it's really incredible, and you again approaching it with the respect for these amazing creatures. If anything, it gives me more respect for them spending that time in the water, because you can see them being comfortable and calm, and you see that they're not just this evil thing that they're made out to be. They're just these beautiful, graceful creatures existing in their natural habitat.
Yeah.
So I guess in terms of my perspective, I don't know if I was ever really worried about sharks, because again, I grew up in the water, and I think I've always known quite a bit about them. It's honestly never really been a worry for me. If anything, diving with them, I think I fell in love with them just a bit more because I can see how incredible they actually are.
Yeah. And also, it's okay to be scared of sharks.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. They can be scary, but when you choose to go in the ocean, you choose to go with them.
Absolutely.
So that's their home.
That's the toss up. And I mean, it's like I said to you before, they're not malicious or evil, but they are a wild creature. It's okay to be nervous of them, just as it is we need to respect the ocean. It's okay to be nervous in the ocean. Having that mutual respect also means these interactions are so much better, and you go in eyes wide open. This is, the payoff for my interactions, or this is the payoff for me choosing to be in the ocean. When I ocean swim, I choose that risk, right? But I also know that the risk is really low. Shark attacks are not as common as the media would like us to think. You're more likely to die from many other things than ever be bitten by a shark. Yeah, in terms of those shark attacks and maybe people being killed or bitten, that sort of thing. We also have to think, why is that happening? So pressure on their food system, curiosity, but also our increased interactions with the ocean as wetsuit technology gets better and better and our populations along the coast get bigger and bigger. There is just an increased interaction amount, but we're also putting so much pressure on their food system. So there's so many reasons that these things may or may not be happening, but they are so rare, and I think people forget that. It's talked about so much in the media if anything happens, but it's really not that common. And there's something to be respected and not something to be feared. Although I do understand the fear, they're a creature to be respected and admired.
And there are still so many films about sharks being monsters that want to kill humans. But they're not like that.
But why do we think about sharks in that way and we don't think about, I don't know, lions or snakes as these like evil, malicious things? Like, it's not malice. There's no bad intent. They're surviving. And we're choosing to be in their environment where they're trying to survive.
So there are still so much taboos around sharks, and people prefer just watching movies and like, oh yeah, they're terrible, and just having these thoughts and not changing it and just pretend it's true.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to what we're saying about like that fear of the unknown. Like generally people don't know enough about them, and I mean, the media portrays them in such a certain light that it is really hard to know anything else. And particularly if you don't really see them, it's like this murky water, like what's lurking there, all these things. Like, it is scary if you don't know enough about them. I even had, I guess, when I was guiding when I was at Morton Island, say like, oh, are there shark nets? Are there shark nets? And I was like, no, there's no shark nets. Like, if you want to get in on the tour, like, this is the risk you have to accept. Bear in mind, it's incredibly low risk, but people need to accept that we're going into the habitat. If you want to interact with the ocean, you may or may not interact with the marine life. That's the toss up.
I agree. And I received another question from Anouk about the $90 million of I lost the word.
For the drum lines and shark nets in Queensland.
And do you have a thoughts about this? But in a shark perspective.
Yeah, and we suppose briefly touched on this earlier about that that funding going towards the so-called shark protection, I don't know, initiative or whatever it's called. It's really devastating. So I'm not sure what sort of drumlines they're putting out, but there's two different types to my knowledge. There's smart drumlines and the traditional. So for those that don't know what drumlines are, they're baited hooks put out just past the surf line. The government kind of sells it as it's safety, because the idea is to kind of reduce numbers of sharks, and any sort of dangerous sharks will be more drawn to the bait than they are to swimmers, is pretty much the perspective on it. So traditional drum lines, the shark will die, so they will take the shark off the hook, these massive hooks, and they'll kill them. Smart drum lines, they will go onto the hook, so they will go to the bait, and if they're a bigger shark, they're probably more likely to survive. If they're a smaller shark, they're unlikely to survive. The idea is that there's a sensor that's set off, and people will come out and get the shark and tag them and let it go. That's the idea of the smart ones. I think they have traditional and smart ones interspersed along the coast. I'm not sure what's being implemented in Queensland at the moment. Either way, survival rates of the sharks are really quite low. I mean, if you think about dead things being in the water, of course the shark is going to come there. And I mean, I even look at the drum lines out here along the coast and I think that is actually pretty close. Like, you're bringing them in surely closer than they already would. But at the end of the day, it's not targeted. Any marine life can end up on that hook. So it is not, you know, kind of discerning in the marine life that gets kind of caught up in these things. And I always think about it as like, okay, so we've got bait, which brings in sharks, and more sharks, bigger sharks. There's now a dead shark on the hook. So surely more sharks are coming in. So I'm like, what are we trying to achieve? At the end of the day, we're actually just culling sharks. Without sharks, we don't survive. We need apex predators to keep the ecosystem going. And it's also devastating to think about these amazing creatures, these bull sharks, these tiger sharks, those targeted species sitting on these hooks and people going out and slaughtering them. It's devastating. And the likelihood of them coming close or even impacting the humans in the area is so low. And we're still going out and culling them. The shark nets, for those that don't know, are a net that's put along close to the shore to give kind of this feeling of safety. They don't go all the way to the surface. I think normally they sit on the bottom and they go up. So there is actually a gap for sharks to still get through. So pointless, basically. And go around. So it's like, okay, I'm not really understanding that. But also there is so many marine species that get caught up in these lines. We just talked about the whale that's got caught in one recently, the turtles, the rays, the dolphins, so many species other than the sharks. Even if you don't care about the sharks, surely you care about the turtles or the dolphins. They die on these lines. There's another Instagram page for those that wanted to see anything on drum lines. Holly Richmond has very good footage of drum lines and shark nets and marine life being caught in them. So if you want to have a look at what that looks like, go to her Instagram page. But the point is, it's not just exactly what they're wanting to cull, and there's so much impact on other marine lives and other sharks as well, you know, getting caught up in all of this. But I think bringing it back to like the question and the thoughts around like the $90 million, it's really just to make people feel safe. But it's a false sense of safety. So it was a reaction to a shark attack that happened off Bribie Island, where a young girl died from a shark attack, and it's a reaction to that. My question is, and I said this before, what else is going on for the shark attack to happen? And I mean, how likely is it to happen again? Is killing sharks really the answer? I think not. I really think not.
And when there are shark attacks, they are always going back to the sea to find the shark and kill it.
No, I totally don't understand. It's like, I remember there was a shark attack in the Sundays, and they were like, okay, we need to get the shark that's attacked this person. How are you going to find the exact same shark again? Why are we taking revenge on an animal that is, again, not evil? It's not out of malice. We're taking revenge on an animal that doesn't have those feelings of revenge or, you know, good, bad, immoral, that sort of thing. and we're not going to find the exact same shark
Yeah.
again. So what are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to
Yeah.
make people feel better? Are we trying to make people feel safer? If that's the case, there are so many other ways that we can do that.
Yeah.
Like educating people on how can we interact with marine life in a good way. When should we be going in and out of the water? Where are the riskier areas? What you could be wearing? Things like that. There's so much more that can be done. What's happening in the area? Is there lots of chumming from fishermen? Is there a massive impact somewhere else on like a food source? Has there been overfishing in the area? What is happening for these things to occur?
Yeah.
And those are the questions we should be answering. Killing the sharks is a short-term solution for a long-term problem.
Yeah.
The food source is only going to get less and less. Our interaction with the ocean is only going to get more and more. Think about wetsuit technology these days and how much of our population is along the coastline. We're only going to interact with them more and more.
Yeah.
Why do we have such short-term solutions to a long-term problem?
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. Yeah. That's so sad. And
It's frustrating.
yeah, so frustrating.
And it, again, I mean, a lot of what I said puts quite a bit of onus on us. But a lot of this has to come from higher up. We're not in a position where we can change this. Any other questions?
No, that's all my
That's all?
questions. Yeah, we talk about everything, and thank you so much.
No problem. It was my pleasure. It was amazing. I loved it. Thank you.
And yeah, and finishing on sharks, that's the best way of finishing an episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I honestly think every time I interact with them, I fall more and more in love with this incredible creature. I just have so much respect for them. And if you have the opportunity to dive with these creatures or interact with them in a responsible way, take that opportunity, because it educates yourself and you can see them in this environment where you feel in control and they're calm and you can actually appreciate everything they have to offer.
Yeah. So many people love diving with sharks, and it's not for nothing. It's because
absolutely.
they're beautiful and
because they're amazing.
they're amazing. And speaking also about that, there are a lot of people who, there are some people who had been attacked by sharks that don't hate sharks after that.
Yeah.
They understand why this happened.
Very true.
And so if they can understand it, why other people cannot? Like the people who hadn't been in contact with sharks, why they can't?
Yeah, and I think there's fear of the unknown, but at the end of the day, if you're going in the ocean, you're taking that risk.
Yeah.
That's a
Thank
risk
you
I'm
for
willing to live
listening
with
to
every
this
single day.
episode,
If that's a
and I
risk
really
you're not
hope
willing
that
to
this
live with,
conversation
maybe
with
have a think
Anna
about that.
gave you a new perspective of the life below the surface. Thank you so much. Don't forget to
problem,
follow
my pleasure.
Oceanicos on all your platforms, and stay tuned for more salty conversation from the sea. See you next time!